Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Tega. In this video today I'll be showing you how to make women's trousers with side zip, and it's a pattern drafting tutorial. So guys, sit back and watch and let's get cracking. The first thing you want to do is to lay your pattern paper like this. Make sure the length of the paper and the width of the paper will accommodate the pattern you want to draft, especially the biggest part of your body, which is your hip. Now you want to take 1.5 inches for on the side of the paper. You want to mark it. We're gonna need it later, and you want to draw a line up to the end of the paper. Then you want to come along the width and take 2 inches as well. Mark 2 inches and draw a line as well across. So that is the line for the waist there. That is the line for the waistline. So we're gonna be starting our pattern drafting from that bit. So you want to take your hip line measurement. I'm taking 9 inches for mine. So I'm marking 9 inches there. So whatever your waist to hip is, you want to take it. If it's 8 inches, you want to mark 8 inches. If it's 9, if it's 8.5, just take your hip line measurement, mark it, grab your ruler and rule a line across. I want to make my marking after drawing the line, right hip line, and move on to my crotch line. And for your crotch line, you need to take your measurement from your waist to your crotch like this and mark it from the waist. So this pant for the crotch line is 12 inches. So I'm marking the 12 inches. If yours is 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever, just mark it on the paper and draw a line across. Now you want to add your thigh length, and from your crotch is normally 3 inches down. So from your crotch line, just mark 3 inches down. Make the marking and roll a line across. Then you want to scribble it down. That's the thigh. Next is your knee length. For your knee length, you're gonna measure, take the measurement from the waistline and add your knee length. For this pant is 22 inches. So I've made the marking and I've drawn my line. Next, after the knee line is your ankle length. So from the waistline again, you want to take your measurement all the way down to your ankle. And for this pant is 41 inches. So I'm making the marking here. That's 41 inches. And I've got allowance left for my hem allowance. As you can see there, I've got 1.5 inches. Now you want to move on to the next stage and add your hip circumference measurement. Your hip circumference divided by 4. Whatever it gives you, make the marking. That's the marking there. Now you want to transfer the same measurement on the hip on the waistline. So the same as the hip line, you want to mark it there. As you can see, that's 12 inches. So we've got 12 inches on the hip line and 12 inches on the waistline, and you want to draw a line across. Normally I should route the line over to the crotch line, but I'll do that later. So now I want to add my waistline measurement. You shouldn't measure your waistline like this. You shouldn't do this. Instead, you should measure it from the other side and not like this. So you want to take your waistline measurements from that side and add quarter of your waistline measurement. So your waist circumference divided by 4, you make the marking, then you add half an inch ease allowance, then as well as 1 inch sewing allowance. That's it. So you've got your waistline measurement, circumference divided by 4, plus ease allowance and 1 inch sewing allowance. And you have to take your measurement like that, the other way around. Right. Now you want to add your crotch measurement. So I'm going to connect that line all the way to the crotch. Now I want to take my horizontal crotch line measurement. So your hip circumference divided by 4, then divided by 4 again. With this one is 3 inches. So that's the 3 inches on my crotch line. Ignore the one on the hip line. Ignore the marking on the hip line. So it's just on the crotch line. Then you come in like that by 2 inches over there and connect the markings together. So that's our crotch line extension, 3 inches. If you have a curved ruler, it's the best to use. I'm just doing my free-handedly as usual. Now you want to find the midpoint of that. So the crotch is 15 inches. You can see it there. Then the midpoint is 7.5. So once you mark that, you want to mark that on the hip line and on the waist as well. The same 7.5. You want to go ahead, mark it on your hip line, mark it on your waistline, mark it on your knee line, and also your ankle line. So you draw a straight line across, and that gives you the midpoint of your pant. So for you to find the midpoint of your pant, it has to be half of your crotch, horizontal crotch line measurement. So that's it. So we'll move on to the next stage. Now you want to connect your waistline to your hip there, like that, using your curved ruler. And now again, I've come over now and we want to be adding horizontal measurement. So now we want to add our thigh measurement. So your thigh circumference divided by 2, not by 4. Measure your thigh and divide it by 2. So the thigh I'm using here is 28 divided by 2. So that's 14. That's me marking the 14 there. So I've got 7 on one side and 7 on the other side. That's the midpoint there. Once you measure your thigh measurement circumference, just divide your tape measure into 2, whatever it gives you. Put it on the midpoint line and divide them equally, whatever the measurement is. Now we want to move on to our knee line. So the knee circumference is 18 inches. So when you divide 18 inches into 2, it gives you 9 inches. So now I've divided the 9 inches again, as you can see. So I've got 4.5 as the midpoint there. So you mark both sides like that. So that's 9 inches there. So I've got 4.5 and 4.5 there to give me the 9 inches, which is half of the knee measurement. Now the same thing applies to the ankle line. Your ankle, 10 inches. So 10 inches divided by 2 is 5. Then you divide the 2 as well between the lines. So that's 2.5 there and 2.5 on the other side. I hope you understand at this stage. So we'll move on to the next stage, which is connecting all the dots together. So connecting all our markings from the crotch line all the way to the ankle line. Once the lines are connected, you should have something like this. If you were to be drafting a straight pant, from your crotch line, you just draw your line like that all the way down. But this is a fitted pant, so it needs to be fitted. We're not drafting a flare pant or a straight pant. Otherwise, you would just draft it out like that from the crotch line. Now I'm going to be adding my hem allowance. For your pant, in order to add your hem allowance, I want you to watch what I'm doing here. I'm going to be adding 1/4 of an inch on each side like that bit there, and on the other side there 1/4 of an inch, not half an inch. Then you mark it right down there. You transfer the measurement to the 1.5 allowance down there and on the other side as well, and you draw your line. And this is to make your hem line beautiful and perfect, guys, and not folded, because you're gonna be losing fabric if you don't do it like that, and you would have problems with your hem line. As you can see, you would have a perfect finish once you do it like this. It will align properly to the pant itself. Now you want to come back to the waistline and take 1 inch off on that side. Take 1 inch off and connect it to the edge of the waistline. Just watch what I'm doing. So you need the waistline slope. It's not gonna be straight like that. It's gonna be a bit curvy. So you can grab your curved ruler and just curve it out. You know, I'm just doing my free-handedly, never mind. So it's gonna be a bit curvy. 1 inch off on the waistline. Then you wanna add your dart. For the dart, the length is gonna be 4 inches. So you still have to take the measurement from the edge line of the paper. So 4 inches all the way, not from the slope, guys, from the edge of the paper. Then you take 1 inch for your allowance, right? That's 1 inch. Half an inch on each side, half an inch allowance to make the 1 inch. And you connect the markings. So that's the dart. Once that was completed, I decided to take a fresh pattern paper and transferred all the measurements there for my back pattern. So I'm gonna bring back the front pattern paper and complete my drafting, because I haven't completed, drafting on the front pattern. So now I'm just gonna add half an inch sewing allowance all the way around. So you wanna do the same for your pattern. For this pant, we're only applying a side zip and not a front zip. If we were having a front zip, we would have drafted an extension right there, but we're gonna be making use of a side zip, so that is not needed. So here I'm just marking out my back panel. Then I moved on to cutting the front pattern paper, as you can see. In addition to having an inch sewing allowance we've added on the side, I'm gonna be adding another half an inch sewing allowance, and it's for the back panel and not for the front panel. I'll explain why later. So first thing I did was to measure the length of the zip I'll be using. So if you're using 6, 7 or 8 inches zip, mark it out. If you're going bandless, then you take out the inches. If you're adding a band as well, you need to apply the zip accordingly. So I added extra half an inch allowance there. And now in total, I've got 1 inch on that side. And that is what is needed for the back extension, 1 inch. And remember, we've already added our 1 inch sewing allowance to my front panel at the beginning of the drafting. When cutting, I'm gonna blend it in properly. This 1-inch extension is basically for the back panel. Once I've cut the back panel out, I'll trim the 1-inch extra off the front panel. So which I'll show you in a bit. So I went ahead and placed the front panel on the back panel so I can complete the measurement. So came to the waistline, and what you need to do is make sure you align it properly. You align the front panel properly on the back panel. Take note because we've cut the front slant of the front panel. You can see it over there. So what I'll do with that bit there, I'm gonna come up on the back panel by 2 inches on the waistline. I want you to take note of that properly. Around the ankle line, you want to come out by 1 inch. For the back panel, you had 1-inch extension, like that. If you take note, I added 1/2 inch sewing allowance to the back panel. Then I remembered it's already on the front panel, which will automatically apply. So I took that 1/2 inch off. At the crotch line, you need to add 1.5 inches extension. So 1.5 inches extension added there to the back panel. I added 1/2 inch sewing allowance, then I realized it's already on the front panel, so I took it off. So the next stage is coming up 2 inches over there by the slope. So 1 inch taken off the front panel and 2 inches added to the back panel. So I'm coming up from the sewing allowance. Don't forget there's a sewing allowance. I'm coming up 2 inches from that sewing allowance. And also here, like I said, you only need to come out by 1 inch. No sewing allowance added because I've added it already to the front panel. So you want to take your 1 inch and connect it right to the crotch line. The crotch line, like I said, is 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches, that's it. So you connect it right to your ankle and also connect it up there to the back waistline. So I want you to just watch how I'm connecting the lines together. On the crotch line, you have to be careful how you connect right together. You're not going to connect from that 1.5 to meet the front panel. You're going to leave 2 inches allowance, right? You want to come out there by 2 inches. 2 inches sewing allowance and connect it to the 1.5 over there, right? Then you're still gonna leave a few inches allowance and connect it all the way to the 2 inches up there. So as you can see, there's few inches allowance from the front panel and the back panel. Now you want to connect the waistline of the back panel from the 2 inches. They meet at that point. That's the meeting point right there. So sorry for the placement of my camera right there, so you can't see properly. So I went ahead and connected the side 1 inch as well, all the way to my ankle, right, all the way down, and over there as well, the 1 inch allowance connecting right up to the 1.5 inch allowance on the crotch line. Now I'm going to transfer the front dart to the back dart, taking exactly the same length. Also, the width of the dart is 1 inch, exactly like that of the front panel, as you can see. So before cutting the front panel by the waistline, I'm just trying to distinguish between the front panel and the back panel. So here I'm properly tracing out the front panel waistline. So I'm gonna grab my scissors and cut. That's the 1 inch extra for the back panel over there. The waistline already has sewing allowance. Like I said before, 1 inch sewing allowance. We added it at the start of the tutorial. So here I'm cutting out the back panel 1 inch off the front panel. So also the 1/2 inch sewing allowance up to the ankle and hem allowance, as you can see. So here's the finished look of our front panel with the allowance on the side and the waistline. Then our back panel with all the allowances added as well. I want you to remember that this is a side zip pant, not a front zip pant. Now we've come to the end of this tutorial. If you have found this tutorial helpful, kindly subscribe, press the notification bell to notify you next time I post a video, like and share, and I'll see you in my next video. Till then, look after yourself and bye for now.